everyone, we've just clicked over 2 parts, so we will get going. So just before we kick into the content today, we just want to start with a quick karakia. So kia hora te marino, kia whakapapa ponamu te moana, kia tere te karohirohi, I mua I tō huarahi. So may peace be widespread, may the sea glisten like greenstone, and may the shimmer of light guide you on your way, which I think is a nice start to our positive job-seeking webinar today. I'll pass over to Amanda.
Kia ora everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. So this webinar has really been born out of the fact that as recruiters, both internal and agency, we have seen obviously a huge shift in the market. It's been very difficult for people to get roles. There's been not as many vacancies coming up and a lot of competition out there. So we've been hearing some pretty bad stories around how candidates are being treated, not really getting a look into jobs. So really just wanted to do something proactive to help you guys navigate these difficult times in this difficult market. So with that being said, we've kind of come up with some tips and tricks. So I'm going to talk a little bit about that. We've also got Hayley from the warehouse group, who we're going to be hearing a little bit from an internal perspective, and Charly, who does a lot of work internally with our candidates and places millions of people, is also going to share some positive stories with you as well. So we will kick into Hayley, who is going to talk to her part next.
Awesome. Hi everyone, and thank you Cultivate for having me come join a very topical issue. So great to be able to share some tips. So I will do a quick fire on my top 3 tips to help job seekers. Firstly, sorry, I'm going to mix it up and go a bit rogue, but I will talk about mindset. So yeah, just to echo what Amanda had said, it is really tough going for job seekers right now. It's probably the toughest employment market I've seen in my 15+ recruitment career. And for many job seekers, it can feel like 2 steps forward, 2 steps back, and completely normal to feel every emotion under the sun on any given day or week. That all said, maintaining a positive and growth mindset is so key. When a candidate is feeling a bit deflated and flat, that really does kind of flow through into that recruitment process, right from that application, potentially a phone screen with a recruiter and an interview, and you just really don't want to be playing in that space. So my tip would be, if your headspace just isn't there, get time to get there, because it will conserve your energy and you'll have a better strategy going forward. So top tips to get into that right mindset would be keeping up routines. So, even those wellness basics of, getting good quality sleep, eating well, exercise, connecting with people, it all makes a difference. Also, redundancy and job seeking can be really tough, but if we look at the positive, with change comes opportunity. So it's a great chance to reevaluate, reassess, and in many ways recalibrate, as to what direction you do want that career to go. The amount of people I've talked to that, in the thick of it, are hating every minute of job seeking, but down the track they sit back and they're like, oh gosh, that was a blessing in disguise, because now I'm doing X, Y, Z. And it's also, I think, using your time, savvily, and for many people it might be upskilling. And, when you've got time, it's a great opportunity to use that curiosity and really lean into topics that interest you in your craft. But perhaps, look at the digital age we're in now with AI and so on, that employers love to see people that have that always learning mindset on. And some of that upskilling, it doesn't have to break the bank. There's a lot of free resources out there, LinkedIn learnings, webinars, podcasts, TED Talks. You can be pretty resourceful on that fact. And also consider volunteering. I've been really humbled looking at my LinkedIn feed and seeing people, like really talented people, that are finding themselves job seeking and perhaps longer stints than they've ever found in the past, but being able to keep their finger on the pulse and, offer a couple of hours a week to really kind of showcase their craft and help an organisation. So I guess you can be creative in that regard. But yeah, really having that almost mental health daily plan to stay sane and balanced, because you need that as an individual, but your loved ones also very much need that. So do what you need to do to fill your cup is probably the essence of mindset. And I think a really important point to note is, if faced with redundancy, it truly is a commercial decision. Like, there are so many talented people out there, and it does not take away all of your skills, experience, and accomplishments. Having faced redundancy twice, I know it feels personal, but it really isn't. And as I've got older and wiser, I can definitely say that with more certainty. Sorry, I'll go fast on the last two. But secondly is networking. Like, New Zealand is small, and this is an opportune time to leverage your networks, but also build new ones. They're really, and being proactive in that regard. There is a hidden job market. So many jobs go unadvertised because there is this sort of like spider web of networks that does its magic. So reach out to those professional and social networks you have. And look, that could be previous managers, previous work colleagues, mentors, coaches, and just tell them about your situation. I mean, by and large, people love to help. It's just being courageous enough to kind of go and seek that counsel and advice. And shout people coffee. People love a coffee date. And, you can use that time to get that constructive advice, support. And from that ripple effect really takes effect. So, yeah, word of mouth, super powerful, and jobs really can be found that way. I know when I was made redundant the second time, I literally got pen and paper out and kind of wrote down lots of people, sent them all kind of messages, and that's how I landed my current role. So, yeah, it does work. And then finally, point 2 there on that slide is really sharpening your CV. And with that, it's really kind of knowing your story and knowing your value. And in this crazy market where recruiters are seeing insane numbers of applications, it's more important than ever. And by knowing your story and knowing your value, it's then taking it to that next level to articulate it in a compelling and meaningful way, which really showcases, your skills, achievements that could really play into this particular role. Your CV is your marketing brochure. It sounds really cliche, but it's true. It is that pathway to then cement the interview and then get that chance to impress in person. And yeah, I guess having sat down with many people job hunting really across this last year or so, when it comes to CV critique, where I nearly always have to go with most people is a case of prune and declutter. People just love to put everything on their CV. And when you think of the hundreds of applicants that are coming through, think of your audience, and they love to see kind of clear, compelling bullet points, nice formatting, all that kind of housekeeping of CV is really important. But also you want to be able to showcase the achievements, because so many people spend a lot of time on that prime real estate of their CV, listing all of the responsibilities. And as a recruiter, awesome to see that role remit, but you kind of need to answer that, so what? So what impact did you have? What was measurable? Like, that is what your audience really wants to understand. I could go on CVs, but I've probably taken more than 5 minutes, so I will stop there.
No, thank you, Hayley. There's some amazing nuggets and little gems in there. And just a couple of things to add on to the CV. Put your personality on it as well, just knowing that you may be literally one of 400 people plus. I mean, I think Charly's been seeing bigger volumes than that, like 700 in some cases and things for roles. So just knowing that your CV is you, put your personality on it. So I'm still a massive fan of hobbies, interests, what you like to get up to in your personal time, showcasing a little bit about who you are, making it obviously professional, but try and put your personality into your CV as much as you possibly can. The other thing I just add to what Hayley said around that, using your network, is also networking events. Now, I know when you're job seeking and working sometimes at the same time, or if you're not working and maybe your mental health isn't great because you haven't gotten as much out of your job search as you want to at this point. It's the last thing you feel like doing, going and having a wine or going to an evening event or whatever. But like Hayley said, it does work. But I actually got my role at Madison because I met my current Madison, my manager there, at a networking event. So it does work, and it is who you know in this industry. So that's some really good points there. Thank you, Hayley. And just before I move into my section, I just wanted to let you know, please put some questions. I can see that we've had a question already coming through about, do we feel that the market is worse than the second half of 2020 when we were all in lockdown? So I see a great question coming through there. Please do put any questions in the chat that's bothering you at the moment, maybe something that you're finding challenging, any questions that you might, because we're going to come to a Q&A session after my little stint, and we really want to tailor this to what you guys want to get out of this webinar and answer some real questions real time. In answer to your question, yes, it probably does feel worse because in COVID, there was some redundancies that were made, but then after that, there was this big flurry of jobs. I think the uncertainty about whether we're going to get a flurry of jobs has probably made it feel a little bit worse. I certainly think that it is feeling worse than COVID times, you know, because I guess we didn't really expect it, you know. I think everyone was in the same boat in COVID. There was a lot of cuts happening, plus there was obviously the wage subsidy. But that's just a quick little answer to that one. So, but please keep the questions coming. Now, I just wanted to cover off some really quick things around being proactive. Like Hayley mentioned, a lot of roles are not advertised on Seek or LinkedIn, which are kind of our go-to places to look for jobs. Some companies are only placing jobs on their careers site and getting people from there. And there are obviously lots of different job boards like Student Job Search, you know, AdSooner. There's lots of other ones that Indeed that you can be looking at as well. So don't just stick with Seek and LinkedIn where everybody is going. Like, be proactive, sign up to all the job boards that you can, have some good relationships with agencies, like agency recruiters, you know, like us, that someone that can back for your experience, someone that can put you forward as a bit of a wild card or a bit left field, because we've met you, we think you're great, and we've got the ear of our client. You know, it's like your real estate agent, you know, you want to turn up and look great and get picked for the house. You know, that's the kind of thing you want to do. You want to work with some really trusted agency partners that can, you know, really back for your experience. And yep, save searches on job boards, really important. Make sure it sounds simple, but then, you know, the jobs are coming to your inbox rather than you feeling like you're just completely just going through it all the time. So you can sign up for it on LinkedIn and Seek. Making sure that your social profiles are looking really great. Sometimes we only search proactively for roles. So I can think of maybe probably 50% of the jobs I get from my customers, I do not advertise because I don't have time, because they're temp or they're contract. So I always go to my talent pool first. So you want to be making sure that, you know, you are applying for jobs, but also trying to kind of get into people's talent pools as much as you can, and also being proactive around making sure that your Seek profile looks good, your LinkedIn profile is up to date, it's got heaps of really good information about what you've done, your achievements, you know, all your keywords are looking good on your CV, so you're coming up on our proactive searches. I know Charly does a lot of proactive sourcing in her roles as well, so you definitely want to be making sure that you're searchable. So that's another big thing. And follow up. So I get this question a lot, like, when should I follow up? Should I follow up? Am I being a nuisance? No, you're not being a nuisance, but timing is critical. Just to give you a bit of a heads up, whenever we put an advert up, we get absolutely inundated by phone calls in that first 7 days. That's probably not the best time to be ringing. You probably want to be ringing around 7 to 10 days if you haven't heard anything. Try and get hold of the recruiter's number. It might just put you to the front of the queue. try and like, I know this is terrible, but try and get them in commuting time, because often when I'm driving home and my phone's and someone calls me, then I'm like, oh yeah, hi, you know, like chatting, you know, looking for something to do, you know, while I'm like, you know, driving along. Commuting times are good to get hiring managers. Not really lunchtime, because that's obviously like you're super busy at lunch and trying to have a break yourself, but definitely do pick your timing, follow up 7 to 10 days after the advert's gone up, see how the advert is going, and have a little list of companies that you might want to work for that you think you've got some relevance. And again, try and target those companies like by proactively reaching out to recruiters or the HR manager and presenting yourself. So those would really be kind of some of my tips. So I hope they're helpful. But let's go to Q&A, Rach, and see what everyone wants to know.
Yeah, awesome. Keep popping your questions in as well. They can be super personable to your situation, because I'm sure they're also similar to what other people are going through as well. So yeah, anything you want, pop in there. But we'll kick off with the first one, which is, with so many applicants for each role, how do I make my CV stand out? Photos, videos, who would like to answer that? Maybe Hayley, did you want to answer that one for us?
Happy to. And just on the back of what Amanda was mentioning, as an in-house recruiter, all I can stress is I saw the stupidest debate happening on LinkedIn about whether candidates should put that they're open to work, you know, the little banner that you can put up. And I couldn't believe that debate was even happening, because I was like, absolutely, as a job seeker, you should. Because for many of us, you know, LinkedIn is really part and parcel of our daily routines when searching for roles. So you want to come up in those spotlights in those searches. And, you know, when I do a search, the first people I would look at are the ones that have openly flagged that they're open to work, because, you know, they're going to be more receptive to a reach out or message. So I just wanted to kind of put that out there, because, yeah, crack up what can come up on those themes. But sorry, back to that question around how to make your CV stand out. Personally, I wouldn't do photos. I think it just opens up discrimination. It's just one of those things we say just wouldn't go there personally. I think a good CV is one that has really like nice formatting and kind of quite clean on the eye. And really the prime real estate is that first page of your CV. In a perfect world, the contact details would be in that nice banner at the top, just so you know exactly how to reach this person. But the most important paragraph to me is that professional summary, or, you know, there's different titles to what you call it, but it's really that elevator pitch, which is probably all of 3 or 4 sentences long, that really talks, encapsulates you as a candidate, your value, what you're looking for, a summary of your experience. And it's probably the hardest part of a CV to formulate for a candidate, and I probably wouldn't do it first if I was starting from scratch, but that to me is really what kind of hooks you in to want to kind of read more and go to page 2 and 3. So that would be my tips. And also, a pet hate is when someone tries to squeeze all of their CV on 2 pages when it would look so much nicer on 3. Because put yourself in your audience's eyes, they don't want to see like paragraph form. So bullet points that are really punchy and concise. You know, instead of going, I managed a team of 5, it would be led 5 team members. You know, just being really like wise with your word choice. I feel like a separate webinar could be on CVs, because you can nitpick to the nth degree.
Yeah. But the other annoying pet peeve as well, Hayley, is not putting enough information on the CV. So when you come to shortlist a candidate, you end up as an agency recruiter having to bulk out and fill it out yourself, or go back to the candidate and request that they put their duties on, because that people can go too light and go to like even a 1-pager. And they just have the heading and maybe a couple of bits and bobs, but it doesn't talk to the full breadth of the role. That's also irritating, because it's time consuming, you know.
Yeah, it's this delicate balance. But I still think you want to be ruthless. Like every bullet point should be meaningful. You know, some people feel like they need to have 20 bullet points for responsibilities and 10 for achievements. And as a recruiter, I'd much sooner see like 8 and 4. And to me, I'm like, I can learn more in an interview. So that would be my tip.
Yeah, no, totally agree. And I think, as Amanda mentioned before, for some of our roles, we've got north of 700 people. So if you think about the time it takes to go through all of those CVs that are clean, instantly we can see those keywords. So in terms of experience, we're essentially going to stop and pause on your CV. So yeah, just make it clean, as Hayley said. So the next question, which is, what role does AI play in matching candidates with roles? I'm happy to say a few things on that, and then I can jump over to one of you guys. So as Amanda mentioned before, with your social profiles, so on Seek and LinkedIn, as recruiters, we do what we call proactive searches, which means we kind of go out and hunt for people. And a lot of the time AI is used in that. So we're kind of searching or using AI keywords. So let's say it's a role that requires experience with MYOB. We will search the word MYOB. And if that's not on your CV or your profile, you won't come up even if you have it. So it's really important to make sure that you've got those keywords, not only because a lot of the time we do proactive searching, but as I said before, when we're going through people's CVs when they've applied, we're looking out for those keywords as well. Is there anything else to add, Amanda or Charly, on that one?
No, I'll just say that, I mean, a big part of what AI is doing in the recruitment world is, I guess, it's trying to free us up from the more manual tasks to be more people-centric. I think that's the whole point of where we're looking to plug AI in. So it's more looking to do more of our administration tasks, I guess, was the only thing I'd add.
Perfect. And Charly, did you want to answer this one? So can your CV be too senior?
Hello, everyone. I think it depends what you're talking about. You want to talk to the role. So how Hayley mentioned about tailoring your CV to the role you're applying for. If the role, you have relatable experience, there's no point making yourself sound too senior. For example, if it's a customer service rep role that's entry level and you start talking about leadership, that potentially would be a bit of a concern for a recruiter. They might be a bit unsure how you would fit in if you've already got leadership experience, how that would then fit. So it's about, as Hayley mentioned, tailoring your CV to the role and making sure it sounds transferable. Anything else you guys would like to add?
I'm happy to add a little bit more, because we come across this all the time, and you'll get a line manager that will turn around going, oh, I think they're a bit too senior, I think they might be a flight risk and jump on soon. So that is something we encounter kind of on the daily. So echoing what's been said, but I as an in-house recruiter love to see how a senior applicant could really add diversity to a team. I think it's more, if as an individual that you could be seen as too overqualified, too senior for a role, it's all about that kind of positioning that you do. We see some people that just really want balance in their life, and maybe they're a mum or dad that wants to be around, or they're, looking after elderly parents. There's all these different situations. So it's almost answering those questions so your CV gets a look in. And that's where, some people say cover letters are dead. And you talk to different recruiters and they'll tell you, you'll literally get different ends of the spectrum. Personally, I love looking at a cover letter after a CV to kind of see what else kind of fits with that individual, and a bit more about their personality, writing style, and so on. But that is a perfect forum to kind of answer those questions, so that as a recruiter, you sit back going, oh, how lucky are we? This could be great talent that could slot in. So that would be my tip, and that's tailoring, right? That's not just spray and praying and getting your CV out everywhere. It's actually been really intentional and deliberate with how you choose to do that.
Yeah, that's a really good point, actually. I was just about to say, for example, if it is a temporary role and you seem too senior, but you put in your cover letter, I might be a bit senior for this role. However, I know it's only temporary and it fits perfectly within my time frame because I've got a holiday or because I have a role that's coming up. That is perfect, because then we understand the reasoning. So that's actually a really awesome point, Hayley.
Yeah, remember COVID times when pilots were stocking supermarket shelves? I mean, the tides have turned. It's been like a crazy employment market. Like 12 to 18 months ago, we were looking under rocks for candidates. There were so many wildcard hires, so many more transferable skill hires, that the tides will change again. They always do. But I think, yeah, just being able to front foot and answer the questions is probably my biggest tip there.
Awesome. And while we've got you, Hayley, are you guys using Zeal at the Warehouse Group?
Yeah, we are. We are.
Oh, cool.
I guess it's still kind of early days on that platform, but kind of exciting to see where it goes. And I'm all for kind of competition and kind of seeing what other job boards are out there.
Yeah.
Sorry, what was the question about it though? How effective?
Because the question, yeah, how effective is it?
Yeah, look, I think it's probably too early days for us to turn around and go, it is the job board. But I think, you know, what they're doing is a bit kind of fresh and different to other job boards. It might suit kind of the younger demographics, but again, I don't want my bias to come through. So yeah, as a job seeker, I wouldn't put all my eggs in one basket. That it's probably another platform worth exploring for sure.
Yeah, awesome, perfect. And this next one, I think this one it's as well. Sorry, Hayley, to put you on the spot, but it might be a good one for you. So how do you suggest you place yourself for a career pivot? My current experience is too junior, so if I apply, I instantly get rejected. How do I use those transferable skills and essentially kind of explain that on my CV and my cover letter?
Yeah, no, great question. And look, like I mentioned, I guess 12 to 18 months ago, when the market was the other extreme, we suddenly saw employers, I think of the line managers I worked with, that were suddenly much more open around what background or skill set could lean into a role. So we know that it's been done in the past and we know it can be done well. I think it's almost peering it back and seeing what those transferable skills are and being able to literally lean in, and you really want to kind of elevate that on your CV. So say I wanted to have a career change from recruitment to real estate, totally random, and I don't plan to do this, but you stop and you reflect and you're like, gosh, collaboration comes in, negotiation, influencing, like you almost need to stop and kind of see what have I got that actually transfers across. And you know, for some people it's changing industries, but it could be changing complete different fields, and we've seen it happen, and it can be done. I think it's just being able to really kind of lean in and talk to it, and that is a more tailored CV, potentially cover letter as well, that really talks to those points rather than just having your stock standard where it could be a little bit lost in translation. But people really love to see individuals that are passionate about that subject. So being able to somehow, you know, share that, it goes a long way. That whole, you know, what is it? Hire for will over skill or something. There was that kind of saying, and we've definitely heard that over the years as well. Sorry, I don't know if I've answered that well enough.
Yeah. That's all right. And we've just got a quick question from Emma around asking if this will be recorded and sent out. Yes, it will, just in case anyone else was wondering as well. Amanda, did you want to answer this next one? So in which section on your LinkedIn, and probably I'd say Seek profile as well, would you put experience with software? So MYOB 0, etc.
Yeah, sure. In your duties, so where you've got your little section to write about what you've done in the role, pop it in there. So any systems that you've used, also anything like Agile, possibly even, you know, certifications that you've got as well. So pop that in the duties section is kind of like where you would put that on your CV as well, obviously, in the freestyle bit.
Yeah, and I would just add to that, think of the different acronyms as well, potentially, you know, like, you know, if it's, you know, you use the whole word or the kind of acronym, like anti-money laundering and AML, make sure you've got both of those somewhere on your CV, because again, different recruiters might be searching in slightly different ways as well, just to give yourself more of a chance. So either Amanda or Charly, this one is for you. So many roles advertised by agencies don't identify the employer, which makes it hard to tailor the cover letter to the role. With limited information about the business, how do we tailor our application to that?
I'll jump in quickly on that one first and then go to Charly. Talk to the role. You know, if the business isn't being disclosed, then talk to your relevance to the role. would be my sort of short 2 cents on that. Charly?
Absolutely, I agree. And if it's a recruiter who's advertising and they obviously don't disclose the company, when you do go to speak to them, so when there's if you do, as Amanda said, call the recruiter 7 to 10 days after the role's been advertised, or if a recruiter calls you, that's where you can obviously find more information about the role, but it's just presenting yourself in putting your best foot forward really in that conversation. So just make sure everything's timely, just make sure you're having an honest conversation with them, and then they'll be honest back and they'll be able to give you all the information if they can at that stage. With agency, just so you guys know, it can be sometimes tricky to disclose information at that first stage. So we'll disclose what we can, just so you know.
Yeah, perfect. And just a comment from Kristen, I think just on our conversation before, so descending the corporate ladder is something that comes up more often these days, which I definitely agree with. Yeah, kind of well-being and lifestyle is obviously really important. Some people are not willing to climb
just to add to that, like completely echoing that comment, like careers aren't linear, like that squiggly line is so often the case, and growth isn't necessarily linear either. So sometimes at these crossroads development happens in other ways. So I always want to stress that to people, because I think some of us were brought up thinking it needed to go in this way, but life happens and economies change, industries die, others burst. So yeah, absolutely.
Totally. I think just with the technology these days, things are rapidly changing so much more. Roles that are around today won't be around in 5 years and vice versa. And what's the saying? We have 5 careers now instead of 5 jobs for our lives, compared to previous generations. So yeah, I think that's probably a skill as well in terms of navigating today and the future job market, is that ability to learn, to adapt and be comfortable to change. Because I mean, yeah, we look at the job market the last 3 years, it went from lockdown to being a job boom to big scarce, all within 3 years. Normally that cycle would maybe be 10 to 20. So yeah, it's the market. It's the market. And then, so what are 2 other job boards apart from Seek or LinkedIn that you would suggest? Let's answer that one.
Yeah, I'm happy to jump in. I think if I just look at the Warehouse Group, we have started out on Zeal. We do also use Trade Me Jobs. Indeed is also another one where a lot of our roles go on, and that's actually a really strong source of hire for us. So those would be the extras that I would add in. LinkedIn Jobs, all of our roles are integrated, so they will appear on the LinkedIn job board, and a lot of companies are kind of following suit. So I would still say Seek and LinkedIn and Indeed would probably be the top 3 from an in-house perspective.
And the 2 that I would just add is Job for Mums, just depending on what you're looking for there. If you're looking for part-time roles, there's some really good stuff on there. And also a student job search is really great. Once again, we use that quite a bit and it's really successful. So they would be the 2 that I would also plug.
Yeah, especially for student job search is great for all those kind of entry-level roles. If you're wanting to pivot or get into a certain sector, it's really good. Cool. There's 2 questions. Thank you, Kirsten. Let's jump in here. 2 questions in the Q&A. Craig, cool. So how do you explain lifestyle choices without appearing burnt out? Who would want to answer that one? So I guess how would you kind of explain that or kind of proposition that during like an interview or a phone screen in the most positive way?
I'm happy to jump in. I just think just being really real about it and honest. That as an in-house recruiter, we love candidates that are open and candid, because you just know where you stand, and we are then an advocate for sharing their details with a line manager. So I guess it depends on the individual. Everyone's got different levels of what they want to share, but that would just be my tip. The amount of people I talk to and they're just like, look, my children are still young. I want to be around in their lives. That working, a 30-hour work week is what's important to me right now versus responsibility of what I've had in the past. Just you know, whatever you need to frame up in that way automatically puts your reader kind of, or the audience kind of like, I understand, you know, where her priorities are, you know, and people equally need to pay bills and want to keep their finger on the pulse work-wise, but sometimes it's all within balance. So
I'd also add to that as well. I think it's really easy to form a red flag around someone when you kind of get a bit of a sense that something's not right, or there's something not being disclosed, or there's a bit of a gap. I think it's much better to be told what's really going on in this candidate's life, and it actually helps you to build up better rapport, trust. And someone's just asked here around like asking about flexibility options. Absolutely, but you don't even need to disclose that it's for household care. You just ask, what's the flexibility that's offered in this role? You know, you can be open about that, but you don't have to. I mean, flexibility is something that since COVID, thankfully, is on the table in most roles. So I would just ask the question without saying, you know, it's because of X, Y, and Z, because potentially that could lead to discrimination if the hiring manager is, you know, that way inclined. So I would just ask about the flexibility and say, you know, do you offer any work from home? Do you offer any glide time? Because, I mean, obviously a major problem in Auckland is the traffic. So a lot of people do want to be able to either work starting later or starting earlier. And that's perfectly normal. So traffic is something that we get asked about, you know, a lot. Can we work around that? But, you know, I guess it's that kind of healthy balance of like not oversharing or not necessarily offering something up that you don't need to, just, you know, making sure that the role is going to work for you. But we are seeing a little bit of a pull of companies going back to a bit more in the office, and we're seeing a lot of candidates wanting to leave roles because of that. Because it is still the number one most important thing to people is flexibility, whether it's working around childcare, it's people without childcare that have other passions and hobbies that they want to pursue as well. So hope that answers that question as well.
So thanks, Amanda. And a question from Michael. So how prevalent is ageism in the market? Who would like to tackle that one? In general.
I would love to say it doesn't exist, but I would be lying, because we know it does, just like so many other biases do. Yeah, personally, I love when I'm shortlisting for a role to get that true diversity on a shortlist, to be able to kind of show the different extremes of here's a junior up and comer, here's a seasoned, and, you know, being able to kind of show that real mix. Because gosh, all I can say is looking even at, you know, the portfolio I've recruited, you know, they could absolutely, some teams could really benefit from having, you know, someone with maturity in the team. So yeah, I don't think there's a magic bullet or a silver bullet as to how to solve that. I personally think it comes back to mindset again, without sounding like a stuck record, because there can be, you know, people in their 60s that have the curiosity and interest to upskill, lean in, develop, and take on feedback, you know, all these important traits that we look for. And you could come across a 30-year-old that's just closed book, you know, my way or the highway. So I think it's actually coming back to those right qualities and mindset, and age just isn't in the equation. I'd love to say every company has that thought, but would be lying.
I guess it also comes back to having good people to advocate for you as well. So making relationships with agency recruiters, or if you get, you know, a really great phone call with an internal recruiter, you know, that person's going to advocate for you with their hiring managers as well. So it's all relationship building. Like I can think of lots of, you know, more mature candidates that are just full of fun, full of life, got absolutely loads. And also some people come to me that are even retired and they say, you know, I've still got another good 5 years in me. I'd like to do X, Y, and Z. And they're absolutely placeable candidates. So I wouldn't let ageism kind of get you down or be a blocker. Just keep on applying, and, you know, the right role when the stars align will come to you, really. Charly, I know you wanted to add something as well.
I was just going to say, sorry, on the flip side, for those that are younger trying to get into the corporate world, I appreciate that that's a challenge as well. And sometimes you're constantly faced with that barrier of age, you're too young, you haven't quite got the maturity. So, I was just going to say exactly what you said, Amanda. That's where really building that relationship with a recruiter, they'll be able to fight in your corner and really, you might not have the experience and skills, but you've got the behavioural part that will really excel once you're trained and in the role. So that was just what I was going to add.
Yeah, and I think just not approaching it negatively. I've had quite a few conversations in my career where the first thing I say when I call a mature candidate is, "Oh, I'm old. You probably don't want me." Which is, no, I was calling you because I think you've got a great background for the role. So yeah, just not dampering the situation. I think it's really important mindset. And Craig's just posted in the Q&A, which I totally agree with. Focus on the transferability and what the years of experience means, not that you are 25 years experienced. Which, yeah, definitely agree with that, Craig. Cool, we've got one more question. So I noticed that factors such as relocation is a screening question during the application process. How do you encourage expats seeking for overseas roles? I'm not sure exactly what that question means. Are you meaning more kind of looking for roles kind of coming to New Zealand or moving overseas? If maybe you've asked that one, could just clarify, that would be great. But is there anything else we've missed today, team, that we think we should cover off before we go to Charly or Herbert in terms of questions? No.
I think I was just going to say, like, this kind of goes around the expat kind of like returning to work. I have noticed that, and I experienced this myself when I moved here from England, and you're not on your own if you feel like this, but it was almost like my experience just didn't count from like the UK, even though I had like loads of years experience in recruitment. And it was almost like our clients want to only consider as a relevance your New Zealand experience, which is really tough because maybe you've only just arrived or just come back for maybe a span of like 10 years overseas or something. So that is a hurdle to get over. And I think it's really important to kind of front foot that when you're having a conversation with a recruiter, like, like I've got a year's experience in New Zealand doing X, Y, and Z, but when I was overseas, I had 10 years doing this, and that covered this, this, and this. So it is definitely a very real problem. But there are people, it depends on if the recruiter actually reads the CV, because I had one amazing candidate who I placed who had done recruitment volume at a great business, who was well known for like really training amazing candidates. And I saw that she'd been working in the Philippines, but she'd actually been recruiting into New Zealand. So I thought, okay, cool. So she probably knows the New Zealand market. Had a chat with her. She's amazing, and she went temp to perm for me. So I think it's really important to, again, highlight that on your CV if some of your overseas experience has touched New Zealand or Australia, because we're obviously so closely linked. I think that's probably a good point of something to do on your CV.
Yeah, awesome, perfect. And Charly, do you want to do this next one? So asking to that. So salary is also a pre-screen question. How do we know what number to put in? Should we go low to get a phone interview, or go in with what you think you're worth?
I know salary is always a really horrible topic to talk about. Definitely don't go low just to get a phone conversation, because you don't want that for yourself. You guys know exactly what you can afford to live on, so you don't want to go low, and then it also generates a confusion on the recruiter's side if you've said one thing but mean another. So that would be really tricky. Stand your worth, and if you know what you need to survive on, and also what you're on currently, or what you were on, and where your experience lies, then that's your true salary figure. And when you build that relationship with a recruiter, they should be honest with you. They should say to you, no, you're underselling yourself. You know, actually the market is here and you should be aiming a bit higher. Or they'll say, oh, compared to the current market at the moment, you are a little bit high. And this is really what we're seeing, this bandwidth. So it's having that open conversation. That's where, I know we keep saying it, but building that relationship with your network and people around you will really be beneficial.
I would also say to avoid at all costs, you know, putting a number in if you can. If it's a free text, I would just put open to negotiate to market rate or based on my experience, because you should really be talking figures. Like Charly was saying, you know, you don't want to undervalue yourself, but you don't want to go too high. And the market has shifted a little bit. We are seeing sometimes 10 to 20k less for roles, which is just a reflection of being in a recession, I guess. But I would say only disclose or ask for budget. But I mean, one thing I get my candidates to do when they're going through the process is I negotiate on their behalf. So I don't let them talk about figures at all, because you can't come up from low. And I'm a big fan for pay for the role, not paying for somebody if they're happy to accept like 10k less. You're paying for the particular role that you're recruiting. So I would try not to, you know, or put it back on them if you can and ask what the budget is and say, I'll let you know if that's within my salary expectations. But you've got to be confident with money, because you've got experience, you've got skills, and you've got to back yourself. But if you have to put a figure, put something medium to the higher band of what you're looking for, I would say.
Yeah, agreed. Hayley, any insights from more of an internal point of view on that one as well?
Yeah, it's like the $1 million question, and a lot of ATSs, so the application tracking systems, will kind of ask you for that. Some may offer a bracket. All I can say is, as an in-house recruiter, is we do screen off that. So when we've got hundreds of applicants, if someone's like put 50k more than the role, we're not going to hop on the phone and talk to them. So it's such a tricky dance, because, you know, it is paying what the role is worth. But you equally, you know, people need to hold their value in the market. I'm a big advocate for that. But sometimes a 100k candidate has been looking for work for 3 months and this role's 80k. Some people are open to that discussion and going, actually, to get into this company, you've been very honest, it's 80k, I will proceed on that understanding. So it's kind of getting that conversation, but sometimes you just have to put a number or bracket. A lot of people just put 0 to kind of do Amanda's solve on that. So there are ways, but yeah, that's you do still need to hold your value in the market, but people need to be realistic. And I guess as an in-house recruiter, we've gone from one extreme to the other. Like 18 months ago, people were asking for the most unrealistic salaries and in some cases getting them, whereas now it's a lot more kind of realistic and refreshing. But a little part of me dies when someone like literally tells me what they're worth and what they're open to earning, and I'm like, oh gosh, no, like you should still be getting X, Y, Z. Yeah. So again, it comes down to rapport and having that conversation.
Yeah, no, fully agree. And Kirsten's just put in the chat, every job should have a salary range. It's not unfair, and look, definitely agree. There are some situations, probably just to maybe explain that, especially from an agency and maybe even an internal point of view, where we don't put an exact salary on there because it could be confidential, you know, against other people in the business. You know, there can be a few reasons. However, when you are searching on Seek, we do have to put a hidden salary in the back end of Seek or any other job ad. So you do know, if you, let's say you go kind of 80,000 and this job comes up, you know it will be paying around that $80,000 mark. So just using those search parameters, just so you kind of roughly know, unfortunately, if it's not a visible salary. But we'll jump onto some awesome questions there. I definitely think we got into some really good detail, which is great. So just to wrap us up at the end, we have our lovely Charly just covering off a few final things for you guys today.
Hi everyone, I'll make it short and sweet because I know we're running out of time. So it literally is, it's not you, it is the market right now. I just want to make that so clear to everyone. I know it's taking a little bit longer in this current market to find that right role, but we've really just got to remain positive, remain hopeful, and just not get disheartened. It is a hard time out there, but it's not personal, which I know, Hayley, you already mentioned this. It isn't personal if you get a rejection. It is simply you've just got to keep going and keep trying. And like I said, key is really using those job boards, multiple job boards, really building your network, and particularly just connecting with that recruiter. Like you say, whether it is internal and they can really float between different teams, or whether it's building with an agency recruiter and just really they can fight your corner. A lot of jobs, like I said, aren't advertised, so it's really just building that rapport, building that relationship, getting a recruiter to understand what's important to you, what your motivation is, what your needs are, and then they can speak to their clients on why we think you're so great. Positive stories, you know, we've had a couple of people we've spoke to recently that have been, their roles have been disestablished, and we've really been able to listen to their needs in such a horrible time and stressful time, and really turn that around and manage to get them interviews this week, which is really fantastic. So it really is just building that rapport. Secondly, we've had some really awesome stories where we have had quite tough briefs, and you know, skills and experience is always the one that comes up that they can be quite rigid, but we've able to, because we built good rapport with the client and with our candidates, that we're able to negotiate that a little bit and go on behaviorals and really been able to push their transferable skills, which I think is really awesome in this market, that we can still do that a little bit. So it's just, like I said, build that rapport, remain positive, and just don't let this market get you down. That's me.
Thanks so much, Charlie. That's awesome. And yeah, I just really wanted to sort of follow up and say thank you to everyone for jumping on and for spending your time with us. I know time is precious, and for Hayley's insights as well have been really informative from an internal perspective. You know, I hadn't actually really thought about the fact that with the ATSs, they often are built in. It just reminded me of my job seeking day, where you have to repeatedly, you know, fill in all those things. I think it's off SnapHire or something. So yeah, it's kind of soul destroying having to go through all those things. You've constantly got questions and second guessing yourself, but we are really behind you. We're wishing you all the best with your job searches, and you know, it is a difficult market, but we are hearing from certain economists that from 1 July, which is only next week, things should get better, and the closer that we track towards Christmas, things should start to pick up, and then obviously next year will look a little bit different. So hopefully things will start to stabilise and pick up again. So hang in there, and we will be sending up